What is up, everybody? Versus TV here today. Took a little break because gaming news hasn't really been that interesting, but what still remains the same is this constant war against $70 video games. This conversation keeps getting brought up consistently. Sony fanboys keep defending the $70 price point. And it's kind of at this point, it's kind of like this has been talked about so much at this point. It's like, hey, if you're gonna buy the game at $70, just do it. It's like nobody's stopping you, but understand that the vast majority of consumers are not okay with that price point. Like the PC gamers in general are not gonna pay $70. Xbox gamers are probably not gonna pay $70, most likely, and Nintendo gamers are paying $60 as well. So it's only the Sony side who are paying $7 for video games. And there are some third-party companies, like I know Madden just released for $70. Only a few companies get away with that and their game can do really well. I can understand like a sports game like Madden because it's a lot of casuals who buy that game. They probably buy like one game a year anyway, one or two games a year, and so I understand why they buy games. But the average person, I don't think the person just dropping $7 for a video game like that. So, but this is a Sony fanboy trying to defend that talking point, and he says 2022's gamer's logic. I will spend 3K on a PC and 1,500 on a monitor, but refuse to pay $70 for quality games. That's the logic. And before you goofies mentioned that quality is subjective, did you say that before you upgraded to the OLED or 4K TV? Okay, so let's talk about that. 3K on a PC. I don't think most people spend 3K on a PC. I think that's like a hardcore extremist because I'm pretty sure you can go like to your local Best Buy or wherever, like even about a pre-built, maybe around like 15, 1,000 to maybe 1,300 to buy a pretty decent PC. 3K is like definitely on like the enthusiast side. Like you really want the high end specs at that point. So that kind of who is paying 3K on a PC like that? To be honest, who is doing that? Unless you really want a high end PC, that's some people I see doing that. So it's kind of not true. 1,500 on a monitor. So let's just say a monitor or a TV because he's talking about OLEDs at the bottom too. So I mean, like I said, you gotta be a hardcore enthusiast to spend that much on a monitor. I don't think the average person is doing that. So that's kind of stupid. And then he's talking about the $70 is what the average person has to pay, while he's using some extreme examples of enthusiasts who are paying these high amounts. But the average person has to pay $70 is what Sony's trying to do, and a lot of these third party companies trying to do. So I was like, I don't agree with this at all. It's like if somebody's paying 3K on a PC and 3 times on a monitor, they're not obviously extremely hardcore into this thing, or they're just extremely wealthy. The average person is not doing that. While the average person, if they do want to buy some of these Sony first party games, they do gotta pay $70, which a lot of people have a problem with that because it's like, why is the games increasing in price when it's like the games, like he says, quality is subjective in like a sarcastic manner, but it is subjective because it's kind of like God of Ragnarok is the sequel to God of War, which 2018, which that game was great, but Ragnarok is probably the same for same quality wise. So it's like, why is it being increased? Why is it being increased $10? So it's the quality gonna be vastly different. It's just gonna be the same story. So what's the big difference here? And so he made this post. A lot of people had a lot of different responses, a lot of pushback to the response. People agree, but let's see what people have to say about this. Absolutely, quality is subjective. Not everyone sees the same value in an OLED or 4K TV. A great example of that is the large number of PC gamers who would rather pay on a 1080p 240Hz monitor than a 4K 144Hz monitor. It's a subjective. Yeah, I think most people on PC are getting like a 1080p or like 1440p. The vast majority of people they don't care about 4K like that, to be honest. But what was really problematic is they gotta pay $70, so they're probably gonna either sell the 7Cs or get like at a heavily discounted price. So it's like I don't see PC gamers paying $7 for a video game. I don't see that happening at all. Hell yeah, I'm gonna pay for quality hardware and not pay $7 for games. Putting all that money into the hardware pays itself off because of how reasonable the games are with all the competitive storefronts that want my bottom dollar. Yeah, maybe on PC. There's no competitive storefronts on console. The game's released at $70. What are you talking about? And she's just talking about from a PC perspective, but on console, you don't get competitive storefronts for video games. Unless you're something like Black Friday, maybe, but other than that, it's like the same. Most gamers really don't appreciate the hard work that goes into game development. Oh man, here is the sucking up to game developers narrative right here. I am not a coder nor a developer, but I have used coding languages to get things working in IT. Can't imagine what goes on to actual game development. Okay. So because of that, we should be paying $10 more for video games now. That's interesting. The amount of responses from people trying to explain a PC to you. Okay, I don't care about that. Let's look at the quote tweets. A lot of these comments right here aren't really that interesting. PlayStation fanboys in 2019. Nobody has a 4K TVs. They are not commenting on need for 4K. PlayStation fanboys in 2020. Yes, PS5 will run games in 4K. I can't wait to play those. PS fanboys in 2021. PS5 has games running at 8K. I can't wait to experience the greatest of my PS5. Yeah. How quickly we were just in 4K was the hot is now that people talking about 8K now, which is like, how expensive are those TVs gonna be, those 8K TVs? Pretty sure they're gonna be pretty pricey when they release. Let me fix it for you. 2022 Gamer Logic, my preferred gaming platform, is superior. I got to let Twitter know. Yeah. They really can't grasp why nobody wants to pay $7 for their precious Sony exclusives. It's just hard to grasp for these guys. Okay, now we have the deflection to Xbox post. Surprised it took that long to find some type of deflection about Xbox when the topic is Sony and they're selling all the video games, but you know, Xbox. It has to be brought up with these guys. So this guy states, also many Xbox gamers will buy this proprietary SSD expansion without complaint. I did not buy the SSD because it is way too pricey. You can actually use an external hard drive from the Xbox external hard drive and plug that in. I've been doing that for the longest from Xbox One generation. Just transferred over to my Xbox Series X with no issue. So I don't think most people bought this. They said it was, hey, it's too expensive. They didn't buy it. So is this really a complaint? I mean, this is a big difference than the standard video game being $70. I think it's an optional memory card is a big difference from the video game which you need to play on the console being $70 at the rep. That's a big difference. So that comparison just makes no sense. Paying $7 for some games isn't the issue, but paying that for every new game this gen isn't something I want to do. Exactly. It's like, I don't want that to be the trend where everybody just releases their game at $70. That's gonna be a terrible trend because a lot of these games are gonna flop. They're gonna super flop at that. Like, and we see how bad Sony games are selling to begin with. So just imagine every other game company start following that trend. Like, if they're struggling at $60, if they're struggling at 60, they're definitely gonna struggle at $70 to sell. That's like really. Um, Better yet, complain about not being able to swap batteries with a controller. First, you'd have to buy a new controller. Then buy 60 controllers at $60 a pop just because it's a cool color and complain that games are $70. Okay. Look at you. What other people are concerned when to spend money on. Yeah. Definitely concerned. At the end of the day, you do you. You want to buy the game $70, your prerogative. I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to police what you do. I'm not going to police how you spend your money. But this is a trend I want to end immediately. This whole $7 price point nonsense. Because, like, it's just wild how console people got to pay this price. Mainly because Sony guys are just A-OK in it. But PC guys don't pay this price. So it's like you're getting a console tax for video games now, which is stupid. Like, people could say that, hey, these games released at $7 on PC too, but these games get massive price drops like instantly. Like, when you can pre-order games, it's already like at a heavily discounted, so it's not the same. They're not paying $70. Then that's the biggest irony. The biggest irony about this is some of these Sony guys who are capping for these $7 video games, they're game sharing, so they're actually sharing the prices, sharing the price of these games with somebody else. So they're actually paying like $35 for a video game. They're not even paying the full 70, but they're capping for these PlayStation exclusives like that. Like, it just sound like a clown doing that. Quality games, so they weren't quality at $60. Most indie games are better than these quality games. Yeah. And not to mention, since he is mentioning that, Nintendo releases their games at $60, and their games are highly rated, and their games sell a lot too. So I mean, Nintendo could do the same thing and charge $70, but they're not doing that. So I'm just not understanding why Sony needs to be the ones to spearhead this movement or charge $7 for video games. It's still stupid. And I have seen a lot of people who debate and say why $70 it should be $70, and I don't agree with any of these guys' points, to be honest. I haven't seen any like winning pro single video game argument stance that I actually agree with. Um, I was today years old when I found out that people think you can only game on a PC. Would have thunk it would be a Sony fanboy with this take? Color me surprised. Yes, because Sony told these guys that $70 is a new standard in video games, and they just eat it up. No questions asked, just gobble it all up. Enjoy your new price point for video games, $70, and don't complain at all about why are you being charged more for video games. It's kind of like that meme, but just when a new product just comes out, just consume product, no questions asked. I was like, why? No questions, just consume a product at this point because you see that PC gamers don't get charged $70, but console gamers do. That's interesting right there, and nobody has a problem with it. Um, $70 for quality games. Gran Turismo 7 would like to have a word with you. Yeah, that game got a terrible user score. People were not too happy with that game right there, and that's supposed to be a quality game right there for $70. Or the other $70, Returnal. I got to mention Returnal. I have to mention that one in this video. You have to pay $7 for that game, and people were praying that that PS5 didn't crash or have they didn't completely corrupt their PS5 from playing that game. They had to set up like prayer circles to make sure they didn't corrupt their PS5. But that quality $70, or even Godfall. Oh, that train wreck, that travesty of a game for $70 when that game released. But you know, you're paying more for quality, I guess. So that's what these guys are saying. But I don't know. Will this conversation ever end about the $7 video game price point? It's like if some of you guys will keep defending this, they're gonna keep getting mad when people say, "Hey, I'm not gonna pay this price point. I think it's stupid." They're gonna keep getting mad and defending this. So it's gonna keep going back and forth. Probably this whole generation, to be honest. Um, yeah, because every PC gamer spent that much on their PC. You clown. Yeah, I don't know why he thinks everybody spent $3K on it. 3K on their PC. It just makes zero sense. Like the average person is probably not spending 3K on their PC. It's probably a lot less. Probably like 1K or less on a PC. That's probably what most average person is probably spending on a PC, to be honest. Um, how long is this video? I'm gonna conclude it right here. This guy gets roasted for this talking point. I guess a few people agree with this guy, but at the end of the day, do what you want to do with your money. But this conversation just needs to end at this point. A lot of people think this price point is stupid. Like we're just getting charged more because they can at this point because some of you guys will buy it, but it just makes no sense why they're charging more, to be honest. But I'm gonna conclude right here. Definitely want to see your take on this stance. This post that he made right here. Leave your comments down below. Leave a like this video. As always, thanks for watching and peace.